Okay, so I'm going to teach tonight about overcoming sleepiness, which seems to be a very useful topic for most of us. I have to understand that there are many causes of this condition, and to properly deal with it, you have to know which cause you're dealing with. It's like a doctor, you have to diagnose it correctly before you can give the right prescription to deal with it. Normally we would separate these out into two: physical causes and mental, or about the mind, different causes of it. I actually separate that into three: physical, or about the technique, or about conditioning. These are the three main causes I have found for this. I'll go into each one. Physical, probably the simplest and the most obvious cause of it, but even then there can be several causes on the physical side. And you have to know this, all right? That you have to be able to discern whether this is due to physical or if it's due to the other forms that are more about what you're doing right now, about the technique, for example. Because physical things, you have to do in a very different way. You have to try and prevent them is better than cure with physical things. But I will show you some cures as well. Obvious one is overeating. Number one cause physically is overeating. But that will maybe won't be such a big issue for some of the people coming here, because I think most of you, your time for meditation isn't directly after a meal or 1 to 2 hours after a meal. But maybe it is, you know, maybe on this evenings you come here and you've just had your dinner before you come here, you know. Generally speaking, I notice the crash will happen around 1 hour after eating. It varies on different people, but that tends to get this slump arising as all the blood goes into the digestive system, into the intestines and stomach to try and take these nutrients away and so on. And so it takes the blood out of the brain and down into the belly. And that makes us get this slump. So digestion is the big issue here. And if we overeat, it becomes much harder on the whole system than if we would have a moderate meal. So there are some simple things you can do to deal with this. Practical means. And one of the chief disciples of the Lord Buddha gave a simple recipe, a simple technique, which was to stop eating 4 spoonfuls before you're full. 4 spoonfuls before you're full. Try it though. It's quite tricky because how do you know when you're going to get full, you see? And not only that, but the body's quite delayed in terms of telling you that it's full. It's not instant. It's not like you're full and then it immediately tells you, oh, I'm full. It has a delayed response. And so sometimes we actually full quite a few spoonfuls ago and we not realize it. And we keep on cramming it in. We're going to like really stuffing it in now. So the way to do it, which we found, is to actually count the number of spoonfuls it takes for you to get full. And then you work out, so maybe my maximum is 30 spoonfuls, suppose. So I take off 4 of that, and then we count as spoonfuls. That's one of the little monk tricks on. As we count them, 20 spoonfuls, and that's enough for me. And you'll notice, yeah, that's all I can take. It's not though just about the quantity. It's also about what you're eating as well. And that makes a big difference. One of the greatest things that the Lord Buddha said about maintaining health was he put this emphasis on food, on having food that is easy to digest and not having much of it. So this is one of the greatest ways of improving your health and having longer life. A big emphasis on these two things. So in terms of digestibility of food, there are some things which take a lot longer and much harder to digest than others. For example, beef and pork, like 6 to 8 hours to digest these. Chicken's a lot quicker. It's like, was it 3 hours or something? A lot quicker. Fish is really fast. It's like an hour and a half or something like that, depending on the fish. Much, much quicker to digest. Eggs are even quicker than that. Vegetables are super fast, like 30, 45 minutes. Fruit, bananas, half an hour. So you can look this up. It's very easy to find on the internet, the times of digestion for each type of food. Generally, I say to try and eat like an old person. Your grandparents or whatever, when they ate, they have smaller portions than the reader, and they have to have it like easy to digest food. So you should try to sort of eat a bit like an old person. That's one way to do it. Simple things, making sure that even if you are eating something which might normally be difficult to digest, that you make it easy to digest by blending it or making it mashed or something like that, so that it stomach hasn't got such a hard job on its task. There are many forms of diet which are based around this whole principle of making things easier to digest. For example, food combining diet. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one, which is they separate out the proteins and the carbohydrates because they said that it's difficult to digest at the same time. So they'll have them at different times and different meals and so on. Interesting idea. Very difficult to do in practice because most of our classic combinations involve protein and carbohydrate at the same time, like fish and chips or something like that. Yeah. So it is a tricky one, but very, very interesting principle. So you can look into different ways of making things easier to digest. One way is to have what's called digestive enzymes. It's a food supplement, which I found to be very effective. When we get older, the pancreas starts producing less enzymes. And it means that these digestive enzymes for digesting the proteins, the carbohydrates and fats and so on, it's producing a lot less of them as we get older. And so having a supplement can really, really make a big difference. People who get a lot of wind coming up and heartburn and reflux and so on, or get a big energy crash and so on, they take these and a lot of their problems disappear. Similarly with various food allergies, or what they thought was food allergy, actually you just haven't got you haven't got much of the enzyme to digest it. So there are ones you can get like even digesting gluten or digesting vegetables. There are different formulations. Something I do recommend, actually. It has a profound effect on your health. If you've got digestive problems, you can look into these kind of things. So one thing I definitely would suggest is working on, if it's a food-related one, and you'll know that because if you say you're having on a meditation retreat, you have your early morning meditation, your late morning meditation, afternoon meditation, and evening meditation. That's what we normally do on a meditation retreat. The late morning and the afternoon meditations, you get sleepy, but on the other ones, you don't. That would probably indicate to you it's a food thing. And that's partly why on meditation retreats we keep what's called 8 precepts. And one of these precepts or rules, training rules, is that we don't eat after midday. We have 2 meals a day. And the reason for that is so that the evening one, you're on an empty stomach. You don't have any sleepiness problems from that. And the early morning meditation, where we get up early, so we get a meditation in before we even have a meal. Okay, so you get 2 meditations in at least without this obstacle. But you can't avoid it entirely. So the digestion thing. So you have to try and moderate the eating and to work on so that you do eat things which are easier to digest, or you make it easier to digest. Another main physical cause, if it's not due to the food, is just tiredness. Right? But the causes of the tiredness, now that's several causes of tiredness. It may well be you just had a really long, hard day at work. Right? You've got a taxing job, whether it's taxing physically or taxing mentally. It could be tiredness from that cause. Or it could be late night. Maybe you've had a late night, or you're continually having late nights, or you had to get up early. You want to sleep on strange shift, depending on what your working life is like. Not getting enough sleep, basically, could be another one. Or even you're getting enough sleep, but sorry, you're getting, technically looking at the number of hours, you're getting enough sleep. But when you're actually on the bed, you're insomniac and you're not really sleeping, and you're not getting good quality sleep, and so on. So it can be related to this. And if it is like this, you have to deal with that in a very different way. In fact, our abbot actually normally says with sleepiness, if you feel sleepy, fall asleep. And then when you wake up, carry on meditating. And one of the reasons for this was, it's not an iron rule that you should always do. It was actually people on our big Sundays, they come from all over the country, from long distances, and quite a few of them are quite tired by the time they get there after traveling for like 10 hours or something to get there. And a lot of the other options which you can try are not practical when you're sitting in such a large group, and so they're physically tired. So just allowing themselves just to doze off, because whatever they do, they're not going to. It's too strong to fight. So face up to the fact you're really tired, doze off for a bit, and then when you come to, carry on meditating at the center of the body immediately. And it happens that as you're coming out of the sleepy state, you're very close to the meditation state. You're relaxed, the mind is empty. If you start feeling the crystal ball, you may have a really good meditation experience on the spot. Some people even attain to the higher levels of meditation just on the spot when they come out of it. So it can be done like that, but it's not suggested that you do like that on a habitual or regular basis. It's just because that's a once-off sort of day in a special circumstance. If it's on a regular basis, you really have to look into the habits, into whether it be your sleeping habits, or whether it be you're choosing what time of day to meditate. Are we giving the best time of our day to meditation? Are we giving the best time of our day to something else in our schedule? Are we giving the worst part of our day to meditation? You have to look at the scheduling as well. Generally speaking, you should, I'm not going to go into like 8 hours sleep a night. Actually, how much sleep you need will vary from person to person. And one of the good side effects of us having 2 meals a day on a meditation retreat is you don't need to sleep so much. When you have less food and less to digest, you don't sleep as long. You can get away with less sleep. And the more you meditate, the less sleep you need as well. For example, the abbot in a temple in Thailand sleeps for like 1 hour, 2 hours. So did the founder of this tradition, sleeping like 1 hour. The Lord Buddha was very similar. Meditation starts replacing sleep, because it's actually more efficient than sleep. It's better than sleep. So the amount will vary, but what's important to do is to make sure you go to bed at the same time every night, like a train time. You want to be bang on the time, because you might have noticed if you're not on time and you miss it like by half an hour or something like that, you get this second wind and you get all alert again. And even if you try to go to sleep, you're wired. You can't get to sleep. And it's because you have these rhythms throughout the day. It tends to be 1.5 to 2 hours in each cycle. You can look these up. These are standard science about these cycles here. And if you miss your cycle, you have to wait for the next one. So you have to wait. It's like you miss your train, you have to wait for the next train. So you have to wait for like 2 hours or 1.5 hours until you get your next cycle that you can then go down into sleepiness. So a rhythmic bedtime is really, really important. Not easy, but it's really important for the health as well, because that's all of the various systems in the body are running off of that cycle as well. And so when we're having a disrupted sleep cycle, then it affects our health as well directly. When you wake up in the morning, that can also be have a profound effect on the quality of our first morning meditation or whatever we do during the rest of the day. Sometimes the alarm goes off when we're in deep sleep, or when we're in a really good dream, you're fully dreaming. And you wake up and you're like, oh, where am I? And you're all groggy. Then nowadays on the smartphones, or even you get special devices for this, there are applications which will track how you're moving around during the night, and will work out which state of sleep you're in, and then set the alarm to go off when you're just coming out of sleepiness into wakefulness. It will find that time for you, because actually in the morning, you're light sleeping at that point. You're going in and out of dream, to wakefulness to dreaming, to wakefulness to dreaming. There's almost no deep sleep at all by the time you're in the morning. That's all done in the first cycle of the night. So it will know when you're stirring and put the alarm then. And the strangest thing is you wake up refreshed. It catches you when you're like alert and refreshed as you come out of it. And so you start off on a completely different foot, so to speak. Not like waking up with a bear with a sore head every morning. You start waking up alert and refreshed. So that's really effective if you want to have your early morning meditation. Okay. So if you're struggling to have an early morning meditation because you're groggy every time, this way can overcome that greatly. Look them up. Just type in the word sleep on any smartphone or on the internet and see what you find. Plenty of devices and programs for these things. So you can try different times for your meditation, whether it's the early morning meditation, which for most people works really well, the early morning meditation. If they can get that time in, right? It tends to be a good time, even if you're at home. It tends to be a time before the kids are up, so before it gets all noisy and chaotic. The mind is empty. There's nothing on the mind, and the body is rested. It's comfortable. It's relaxed. So get no tension problems and so on. So it can be one of the best meditations, which is why monks get up early in the morning, so they can get the best out of that early morning meditation time. A lot of people meditate before they go to bed. Problem with that one, you should do it so you get better sleep. Okay, but it's not likely to be your best one for most people, because, well, you're tired and you've built up all this stress and 100 issues on your mind and so on. So it's a good one to do just to let that go before you go to sleep, but it's not going to go into your really deep meditations just because of that. You're at the end of the day. Meditating, say, for example, when you get back from work, take a shower, then meditate, then have your meal, for example. That can work out well for a lot of people. The shower just before you meditate is really good for some people. It freshens them up, and a lot of that tiredness disappears. So that if you're struggling with sleepiness, a good shower before you meditate, or a cold shower even before you meditate, you're not going to get sleepy now, right? So that's one way. Or even just, before you meditate, washing your face with cold water, just to get yourself more alert, freshen yourself up a bit before you meditate, can help stave it off. If it's a morning meditation and you haven't found one of these sleep devices or whatever, and you're a bit groggy, what you can do is do some physical exercise straight away. For example, the abbot here, he wakes up and immediately hits the floor with 50 press-ups. And after that, he's awake. Okay, you get the blood pumping. And when you've been asleep, you accumulate more carbon dioxide in the bloodstream and less oxygen. So it leaves you feeling not very fresh. So by doing something to reoxygenate the blood, doing some kind of get the heartbeat pumping, some cardiovascular kind of exercise and so on, freshens you right up. The classic one, which is very popularly done, certainly in the yoga tradition, but also the abbot of our temple in Thailand does this when he wakes up, is Surya Namaskara, the sun salutation. All right, they're nodding heads, some of the yogis here. The sun salutation, find on the YouTube. There's millions of videos of sun salutation on YouTube. Anyone will do, quite frankly. You don't even need to do it very many times. You know, 3 to 5 times is already enough to wake you up and to get a feeling of refreshness, get out that stale air and getting some fresh air into you, loosen you up. Brilliant preparation for meditation. I actually have a miniaturized form of that, which I've created, which is easier. And it's simply, you're standing, and then you go down to touch your toes, which is like the first part of the sun salutation. And then you come back up again. You know, you come back, you just come straight back up again, and then bend backwards. Okay. And I just add in a little movement to that with the hands, like in a prayer position. And so as I come back up, I put the hands to the third eye and then back behind me. And as I come down, third eye, heart, and then reach for the floor, come back up like this. I do that 10, 20, 30 times or something like that. And what it's the simplest thing to do, but it gets the whole spinal cord being flexed, stretched alternately, activating your whole nervous system. The sciatic nerve is getting stretched as well, so you're activating the whole nervous system here, as well as the simple movement of it and the breath as you're breathing in, as you're coming up, getting really nice deep breath, exhaling as you go forward. Freshens you right up really quickly. So anybody can do it. Simple as anything, but very effective. Another physical technique, which is brilliant for if you've got the food problem, you've eaten too much or whatever, getting the digestive slump. Because it's, as I said earlier, the blood's no longer going to the brain so much, but going much more to the digestive system, is we touch our toes. We stand up, touch the toes, or don't have to really get to the toes right here. The point is not to reach the toes. The point is to do an inversion. Okay, so you just bend forwards and hang there for like a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, however many minutes until you wake up. And it won't be very long, I assure you, because the blood goes to the head. All the blood starts rushing to the head. And again, you're stretching out the sciatic nerve and you're stretching out the spinal column and so on. But you'll find incredibly powerful. In a couple of minutes, you'll be fully awake and alert. So it's the quickest technique I've found, and I've tried a lot. It's the quickest technique I have found for waking yourself up. Very, very powerful and effective. So it works within 3 minutes, usually. Completely disappears. So that's a powerful technique. But if you're sleepy and you don't want to get up, and it's not maybe as strong as that, and you're in the meditation position, you're in the room like we're here, you know, together in a group, you think I'm going to look a bit funny standing up and touching my toes or something. Although I wouldn't mind if you crept to the back of the room and did it. I know what you're doing, so I wouldn't mind. But maybe you feel self-conscious. I came up with some breathing techniques, again from the yoga tradition. And they do a technique, which in English you would call a sublimation. It's a very popular technique in yoga. And what you do is this: you take in a deep inhalation and then you let it all out. And traditionally, you've done this in a standing position, and then you bend forward, not fully forward, but bend forward somewhat. But in a meditation position, you can still do it. You just basically breathe in and then breathe out, crumpling down a little bit. And you squeeze out all the air. Squeeze it all out until you're completely empty. And that's the key point, right? You're completely empty. Then, on an empty breath, you then lock the throat and expand the chest, pulling in the abdomen into this like vacuum place where the abdomen is sucked right in. And because you're still empty inside, right? So when you expand the rib cage, there's a vacuum there and that pulls the stomach right in. And you hold that until you feel like you're going to die. I mean, you hold it for like 10 seconds. I'm going to need to breathe, you know. Start with a few and work your way up and see. But the longer you hold it, generally speaking, the better, but not until you like pass out. Then you release the belly, take an inhalation, full breath, and then hold that for like 30 seconds is long enough. A yogi would hold it for like 1.5 minutes, but in practice, 30 seconds will be fine. And then you let that out. That's one round. And you'll find that a few rounds of this, you'll feel really fresh. And you can actually, when you get practice, you can do it quite quietly and nobody even knows you're doing it. And that's what I've used a lot in meditation. When I'm in a group, I just want to freshen myself up a bit. So we'll do it together. All right? Try it together. Breathe in. Breathe out. All out. Hold the throat. Expand the chest. Pull in the belly. Release the belly. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. And you feel a little rush sometimes. You get this little feeling of freshness. Do you feel fresher? I think you feel a little bit fresher. It sort of wakes you up a little bit. Do this a few times. Oh, it'll disappear. Quite powerful technique. So if you forget it, just watch the video in reverse on YouTube. So that's a little practical technique that you can use. And you can use that for even non-physical causes. If you're just feeling a bit sleepy. It won't be as strong as, for example, getting up and touching your toes. Like I said, that's a stronger technique if you're really sleepy. But this one is enough for a lot of situations. So if it's not a physical thing, then maybe it's about what we're doing in the meditation technique. So you might actually, you're coming down into the meditation and you're not feeling tired or anything, and you're not feeling like you're digesting. But as you go through the meditation, you do find yourself nodding off. That would be an indication that maybe it's the technique. Okay. There are several stages in the technique where you might sort of nod off. And I found a lot of people nod off in the body scan. A lot of people nod off very, very quickly. That actually will tell me if you're nodding off extremely quickly within like 1 minute to 2 minutes. And I know some people, you've said, close your eyes softly and gently, and the head's already going forward. I mean, it's that fast. It's something like knocks them out from behind. That will tell you it's not about the technique. That's conditioning, which is the other cause. But if it's a technique, it'll probably be you're going through the body scan, and maybe you haven't reached all the way to the end. You're already starting to drift in and coming back to the body and then drifting off a bit and so on. Or if it's not on the relaxation stage, you may be doing the 7 bases of the mind, and you don't really reach the 7th one because you've already drifted off, or you're at the center of the body and you're thinking of your crystal ball, but then you forget about thinking of the crystal ball and you're daydreaming and so on. So it can go at different stages, all right? The normal thing that will cause it in the technique is doing something too slowly. We can change the speed according to our state of body and mind. And this is where it comes in art, to know what state of body and mind we're in and how fast or slow to go for us. I tend to lead, when I lead meditation, really, really slowly, okay? And I'm quite deliberately leading really slowly because I'm wanting to make sure that everybody is relaxed, okay? But in practice, when you're doing this at home, you might not be doing it as slowly as I'm leading it. You may actually go through that body relaxation in 1 minute or 2 minutes, okay? If you know that maybe I'm a bit tired, you're meditating before you go to bed, for example, you're going to do that relaxation sequence pretty quickly, because you know that if you did 10 minutes of that, you're going to be asleep after 3 minutes. So if you're going to do it really slowly, that it's not going to be in time. So you do a quicker one. You do a quicker one. So yeah, in fact, you can't fully skip it unless you're really, really relaxed. But you can go through it pretty quickly if you know that you're going to get sleepy. Particularly if you've got the conditioning of being sleepy. Like I said, you know, within a minute you normally fall asleep. Then maybe you don't even do the relaxation to try and stay awake. I'll go into that in a minute. You can go a bit quicker through it. Okay? But if you're feeling more tense, then you do it slowly. You know, basically adjust accordingly. 7 bases of the mind, the same. I go through it very, very slowly through these 7 bases of the mind. Why? Because I know a lot of you can't yet get to the center of the body. Even getting to the 3rd base of the mind is still a bit tricky. But after a while, once you're more able to go inside, then you'll find you can speed up. And a lot of meditators, they don't do the 7 bases. In fact, most of them don't do the 7 bases now. They just go to the center of the body. Or they've already been at the center of the body all day long anyway. So they don't really need to go there. They're already there. Okay. But if you're feeling sleepy and you're going through very slowly through the 7 bases, you don't reach the 7th when you've fallen asleep before you ever got there. So you can go quite quickly. When Lombo Wapa Nam, the founder of this meditation tradition, he led it, he would go samarahang, 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 move it to the next one, samarahang, 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 move it to the next one, samarahang, 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 next one, samarahang, 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 next one. 3 times. Fast as well, just like that. Very, very fast. And they would do it with a crystal ball as well. I've met very few people who can visualize a crystal ball straight off like that and do it so quickly. But in those times, they were doing these 10 homeworks. They were doing this recollecting crystal ball all day long. They were pretty much there already. Going that quickly is good, though, when you're sleepy. Okay. You need to be a bit more active when you're sleepy. So you go through them quite quickly like that. And you don't just stop at the 7th base of the mind. You go back up again. Now, 1 to 7, and then from 7 back down, up to 1. Coming back to the 1st base of the mind. You go up and down. And you can actually get quite quick at this and goes quicker and quicker. It starts off quite slow, but then it gets quicker by itself. And then you'll find that your mindfulness will be increasing and increasing, and it will overcome the sleepiness. So you find yourself drifting off, 7 bases, up and down, and it'll soon get more mindfulness, and then you can just stay at the 7th base once you've got back into balance. Just stay there. You find yourself drifting off again. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like that. That's one way you can balance it while you're still meditating, if it's not too strong. If you say you're at the center of the body and you haven't been doing a visualization technique, and this is one of the main causes of it. I don't like doing the meditation technique. It doesn't work for me or whatever. And so they don't do the visualization technique and they just fall asleep. The mantra is great. The mantra is fantastic for when you're having chatty thoughts, when your mind is in beta and you want to get it into alpha to relax it down. And even when you're in alpha, you're getting these thoughts in the background that chattering away, you're not paying much attention to them. But use the mantra so that you still don't pay attention to them, so you don't get involved in them again. And so they quieten down and become silent. But it's not that good when you're going into theta, which is when you're getting images starting to arise in the mind. It starts off with some vague flashing images of meaningless symbols or something like that, squiggles, all sorts of things. What's called hypnagogic images. Look it up. These are the things you see just before when you're just going to go to bed. The first images that arise. Then they become more complex. Then it becomes a dog or a cow, and then somebody's riding the cow down the street, and you're now fully dreaming and asleep. All right, it starts to get more complex. You have to use a visual technique at that point. It's the only way you're going to manage to really combat that. To deal with a visual hindrance, use a visual cure. If you're chatting in your mind, then use a chatty cure like Samma Arahang to overcome it. So your signal to use the image, a crystal ball or whatever, is when the first images start coming up in your mind. There was one guy who came on a meditation retreat here, and he's done a few meditation retreats before, and he's asleep within a minute or two. So I told him was this. Notice when your thoughts change from being verbal to the first image arising, and number it. The first image that arises, say 1 in your mind. And the next one, 2. Number them as they come up. Because he had no awareness when he was going into that theta state. As soon as you're going into theta state, he'd lose consciousness and he's off. So he would start to number them. The first time he said, I think I got to like 3 or 4, and then I don't remember what happened next. You know? And then the next session, he's like, oh, I could get through quite a few of them. And he found that just doing this completely sorted out. He could suddenly get into that state and not lose his mindfulness and awareness. So if you're getting that kind of an issue, you can try this out. And then instead of just numbering it, you then think of crystal ball 1. Use the crystal ball twice, like this. That will help you to not fall asleep at that stage, that crucial stage. So that's if it's about the technique. But supposing it is about the technique and you have now fallen asleep, or you notice you're nodding. Yeah, nodding. All right. Don't go into the nods. Most people I know, they nod and nod and nod and nod for an hour, the whole session, rocking around, sometimes in circles and all sorts. Okay. Just don't go there, right? You're not going to get much out of the session if that's all you're doing. Much more efficient to come out of that meditation entirely, overcome the hindrance, and then start again. Okay, otherwise you're wasting so much time otherwise. Whether it be standing up, like I said, touching your toes, or going to the bathroom, washing your face with cold water, or whatever, having a glass of water, freshen yourself up, you know, to that extreme, or doing some breathing exercise, or even quite simply, just doing a bit of self-massage. Just doing a little bit of self-massage, massaging the legs, massaging this quietly, doing a little bit. Many monks, when they're sitting there, I noticed that, oh, he's sleepy. Just doing that for a while. Just getting his blood moving a little bit, just being a bit more active until that sleepiness passes. When it passes, then it goes back into meditation. Okay. Simple little technique you can use if it's got to that stage. Mindfulness of breathing can also help if we're only a little bit sleepy. We're just drifting off a little bit. Coming back to the body, coming back to the breath can help us to get a bit more alertness, a bit more awakeness. If it's mild, all right. We know we've just been paid a little bit too little attention. Then coming back to the body, coming back to the center of the body and breathing in and being aware of the breath. Taking a few deep breaths, just a simple, just getting a bit more oxygen in there, just enough to freshen you up and bring you back into balance. If it's mild, then this is a good way to do it. But if it's too far gone, and even if, say, for example, you touch your toes, it hasn't worked, and washing your face, that's not working, that kind of thing. Walking meditation. Again, the classic form of meditation. In our way of doing it, we walk and go samarahang, and think of the crystal ball at the center of the body. That's our walking meditation in this tradition. We walk backwards and forwards doing that. And again, I wouldn't mind at all if I saw somebody very quietly creeping backwards and forwards at the back of the room. All right, I've done it at the back of meditation rooms. You just have to do it quite quietly. So it's one way of not wasting the whole period of time. And in actual fact, you do that for just a minute or 2 minutes. It can be quite enough. You've been thinking of the crystal ball, sit down, you've already warmed up your visual ability, and then you have a really good meditation. So it can be very effective, better than nodding for an hour. Because that nodding for an hour it's like lifting a heavy dumbbell for an hour. Your head is heavy, and you're lifting your head for like an hour. Or you get big muscle knots and tight muscles in the neck and shoulders. You can get headaches from that. So I don't recommend that, and I certainly don't recommend letting the head just go forward for an hour. when we say, you know, if you're sleepy, just go to sleep. That's best done if you can literally go to sleep and sit in an armchair with your head supported. So you're not putting strain on your neck by putting your head down forwards. Or if it's really extreme, well, lie down. But the lying down technique, use an alarm clock. Set a little alarm on your smartphone or whatever, 10, 15 minutes. Only give it that. Longer than that, you're likely to go into deep sleep, and you go into a full sleep cycle. And you want to be in, like, it's going to take you about 2 hours before you come out of that sleep cycle. And so you'll be groggy if you come out of it halfway through. So it does no good. But if it's like for 15 to 20 minutes, it doesn't go deep enough to get that problem. So that's why at the end of a yoga session, when they do Shavasana, this corpse pose lying down, they don't do it for very long. And you feel great when you come out of it because it hasn't gone into deep sleep. So you just do that beforehand, and that can refresh you. The Lord Buddha, what he would do is lie down on his side, resting his head on his hand like this. It's not comfy. And if you fall asleep, your head will fall off your hand, you wake yourself up. You're only going to stay in there for like a short period of time. And the Lord Buddha never actually lost consciousness while he was doing it. He was fully awake and meditating while in that pose. The body's getting a nice rest. So if in the last resort, here, take a power nap. Okay, do the body scan while you're in a lying down position. Set your alarm, and then come up and meditate, and you find you can have a really good meditation after doing that. Say you have now got too alert, then you've overdone it. Then you can reduce it back down, reduce the awareness back down by either doing the body scan. Body scan is very effective at getting you more relaxed, or doing some certain kind of breathing. For example, one very popular technique is what's called the 4-7-8 breath, which is where you breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it for 7, and then exhale to a count of 8, which is quite a long exhale. And then they repeat that, and it's a known cure for insomnia. So it's very effectively getting you relaxed quickly and getting you more sleepy. So if you're getting like, now hyper alert, some people like to do the old coffee approach to sleepiness, which not very effective. Okay, it's kind of doing the wrong approach for it. It takes about an hour to take a full effect anyway, and it lasts for ages and so on. So not always recommended. So if you find yourself too hyper or whatever, doing something like this 4-7-8 breath can help a lot. So there's plenty of techniques to help you wake up a bit, or to even get you more relaxed. To try and find the balance between these two, where you're relaxed but alert. Relaxed but alert.